Welcome back. This topic I'm really excited to talk about, not because it's like a good thing, but because it's something that I've dealt with my career, unfortunately, a lot. And so it's one of the things that like I really want to warn other PMs about, specifically PMs of color, female PMs, just because this really makes your life as a PM so much harder, and I can't underscore it, that a lot of times it really makes you think like, shit, am I the problem? Like, maybe I am not cut out to be a PM, you know, like all of those kind of self-deprecating, you know, thoughts like creep into your head, like it's just not this is not for me, it's not meant for me because it shouldn't be this hard. A lot of it ties back to this topic, which is about narcissistic bosses, and you'll hear me specifically say narcissistic bosses and not leaders, and that's intentional because a lot of times they are bosses in the sense that they may be your manager, they will give you directions and all of those things, but like leaders don't act like this, right? Leaders inspire, leaders like build you up, leaders work alongside you in the trenches, and that is 100% the opposite of a narcissistic boss. So I've dealt a lot with this in the early stage startups that I've worked with, and I'm not saying that like you can't find this elsewhere in bigger corporations, because I think you absolutely can. And granted, asterisk disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not diagnosing anybody, but I can link to another YouTube video from a actual doctor who talks about, like from a clinical perspective, like some of the characteristics of a narcissistic leader. And as you can see, it's kind of like one-on-one or a direct correlation between my lived experiences. So for legal reasons, I'm not saying any of the people that I've worked for are narcissistic, because again, I'm not a doctor and I can't say that, but I'm saying this is in my lived experience and my truth. This is kind of the experience that I've lived. Rambling much? Okay, so let me get into it. So like in these early stage companies, I think you tend to find a lot of people with these type of characteristics, partly because narcissistic people tend to crave power, and like what outside of like becoming president or running for like office, public office, something like that, like becoming a CEO of your own company is definitely one of those things. There's an ego-driven thing to it. There's, there's the competition of like how much money can you raise, or how big of a team, or how big of a valuation. All of those stuff I think like attract narcissists. And then think about like building something in your own image, like it just all fits the bill, right? But these characters kind of make it, and even in the corporate world, but make it because they're really great salespeople. Like at the end of the day, they're very charismatic. People like them for short periods of time. And and they can really, inspire people until you work with them for, more than like 4 or 5 weeks. And some people have the really great ability to identify like a narcissist really early on, and can avoid them. And I have now learned, hopefully, some of those things that I can share with you. So like first, let's just talk about like, what does it feel like to work with a narcissistic boss, whether that's your CEO or whether that's your direct line manager. And then we can kind of talk about, some of the questions that you can ask as you're interviewing, so you don't get into another situation. And then if you are in a situation, how do you kind of navigate that? Cool? Okay, so what does that actually feel like? So in some of my experiences, it's been being love bombed in the beginning. So everything you do is amazing, right? Like you came here, you saved this company, Brittany, you're bringing all the things that I'm looking for. You're like the type of, and essentially this is love bombing in the beginning is also a little bit of like this golden child syndrome, which is also a red flag. Like if you happen to come into an organization and you see a pattern of them having like a golden child for X amount of months, and then all of a sudden they're moving on to a next person, that's a big characteristic for me, again, for my learned behavior. So love bombing in the beginning, you can do no wrong, everything's perfect, and then all of a sudden it's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where all of a sudden like you just can't do anything right. Like you can barely breathe correctly as far as they're concerned. And then they'll say very demeaning things like, well, I just assume that you would understand how this works because like it's common knowledge, or like if you can't even get this thing right, then I don't even know what to tell you because that's just basic. Like, it's just like those types of like they're really trying to dig. But again, like, this is like, you're supposed to be your boss, right? This is someone who's supposed to, yes, hold you accountable for things, but like to be that petty and to be that catty and just to like dig you for no reason, it's a sign. Another sign that I've lived is a boss who blames everybody except themselves for the situation that they're in. So I literally had like someone who was like, well, you know, no one told me that this was an issue. But one, people did tell them that this was an issue. And second, as a CEO or the leader of the organization, that's partly your responsibility. And the thing that I'm talking about is like to do with metrics and things of that nature. So like that's also your responsibility at the end of the day, is to stay on top of it, particularly if you're talking to investors to raise money and you're spouting these numbers. So like, where are you getting these numbers from if you're not aware of what's happening, right? Like, make it make sense, bro. Yelling at people, berating them either in public or in private, trying to get you to say some shit about another employee. All my lived experiences, yo. Like, and I remember that situation where they were really trying to get me to shit talk another employee. And I had been working with my coach at the time and was able to like come up with an answer that was very like non-committal. Essentially, it was like, oh, I don't see it in that way. And then they were pissed at me, right? Because either I'm for them or against them. If I was on, team enter name here, then like I must have been against them. And then they stopped talking to me like together. Which is it's just like children, right? It's anyway, so these are some of like the lived experiences, and like off the top, you may be like, people who haven't been through this may be like, oh, this is not too bad. It's just corporate. It's just kind of what you deal with in work life. Like, one, it's not. There's a lot of really great managers and bosses and leaders out there that don't act this way, that use their words to communicate appropriately, two, sets really good expectations, and just like actually cares about you as a human being. But the feeling that happens, the stress, the anxiety, I cannot underscore how much that really tanks your mental health and how important your mental health is, because you can't do your job efficiently if every 20 minutes like you're on guard for like another attack, or you have to be so on top of like what you say and how you say it, which is already a thing for us people of color, right? We already have to filter everything that we say through either the lens of your ethnicity or the lens of your gender or the lens of enter another thing here, right? That's where intersectionality comes into play. So, for as a Black woman, I have to make sure anything I say doesn't come off as aggressive or too emotional or blah, all of those types of things. And then on top of that, now I have to like deal with this other person's toxic traits so that I don't trigger them and set them off, so that I'm not then like berated and then like, because I still have to do my day job at the end of the day, because then that's another thing that they're going to talk about if I don't do it. Okay, anyway, let me get back on track. Let me just put my trauma to the side for a bit. Okay, so to get back on track, so those are some of like the experiences, my lived experience of like dealing with the narcissist, and like I mentioned, the impact, the physical, mental impact that it can have on you as an individual. So if you're not already in that situation, how do you avoid getting in that situation? Which again, I feel like it's kind of hard in early stage startups. I just think it's riddled with narcissists, and I have a special, like call to actions for all of the enablers out there to stop. Because like we absolutely need to, like, I'm gonna get on my soapbox for a hot ass minute, but like we really do need to cleanse the corporate environment of these narcissists, because like rewarding this bad behavior enables them to continue doing this, but it's at the expense of a lot of really talented people that you are either pushing out of the workforce altogether, you are like bringing down their productivity and their effectiveness, which is detrimental to the company, which again, like none of this at the end of the day makes sense. Like if it's all about dollars, particularly for VCs, the people who are the funders, if it's all about getting your investment back at the end of the day by you enabling these bad actors, these really toxic people, and not like really ensuring that they are of sound like mind and body to actually lead a team of people. Utilize your funds appropriately, because I've seen some shady ass shit what they did with your money. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, you're not gonna get your money back. They're gonna waste your money, and because they are narcissistic and ego driven, they will run that shit into the ground rather than like call a spade and being like, oh, this shit's not working and let me give you your money back. So it's in your best interest to do right. Like help me help you, help me, please. Okay, anyway, back to how do you identify these folks. So I've came up with a couple of questions that I started to ask as I was going through the interview process, and I want to share them with you. And so I'll put them on the screen as well, or so you can pause and write these down. But some of the ones that I've come up with are, ideally, if you have in your interview process haven't already have the chance to be interviewed by someone who's been there the longest and has direct interactions with your boss, your leader, then request it. Like, you absolutely have the opportunity, because again, this is your interview as well. It is not just about them interviewing you to make sure that you can do the job, but it's about you interviewing them to make sure this is a place that you want to share your brilliance. So request to interview one of the oldest tenured people who work directly with that manager if it's not already in the process, and use that time accordingly. Usually people will be like, always make sure you ask questions at the end because it shows blah, 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 whatever, but like in this case, use this time at the end to make sure you're getting these questions answered, and then take more time if you need them, because it's so important to your future success at that job, again, to your mental health, all of the things. It's just, the money's not going to be worth it if like you end up snapping and going ham on them in like month 2.5, right? You're not going to make that money anyway. Okay, so some questions I have are like, how does so-and-so deal with people that disagree with them, or someone who has a difference of opinion? That is super, super important, because these narcissists do not like to be questioned. They do not like to be challenged. I've seen it in multiple cases firsthand. Like I mentioned, if I disagreed with someone about shit talking someone, like they don't want to talk to me, they ghosted me, right? I remember being in a situation where an engineering leader was like a yes person, right? They said, yeah, we can build all these 15 things in like 3 months. And I was like, no fucking way. It's not possible. And again, like, I'm just a product person. Like, I would love to build 15 things in 3 months, but it's not fucking possible. Not with the engineering team that we had, and just physically it's not. And these weren't like small things. It wasn't like, oh, we're gonna build a homepage. And oh, no, it was like, we're gonna build all of loyalty. We're gonna build a whole ass loyalty program. And then 14 additional very heavy things in that same amount of time. Like, no, brah. But guess who they listened to, right? Not her, not the one who was spitting truth and was proven to be truthful later, but nevertheless. So figuring out how they deal with someone who disagrees with them. Do they completely ignore them? Do they kind of demean them, berate them? Like, that's really important for you to find out. What I kind of mentioned a little bit before, does this person have like a habit of having golden children? So like one of the last situations that I was in, I clearly identified that, oh shit, I'm a golden child. But it wasn't until I was able to talk to other people that I realized I wasn't the first. Like, it's highly likely that you're never going to be the first unless you're like literally the first person there. But once I identified that, oh, this other person was a golden child for like 3 months, and now they're shit talking them with like a passion. And then maybe a month before there was another one, like, if that's that habit, then that's a major, major red flag. You probably want to start figuring things out. This is like, okay, when was the last time that so-and-so blamed someone else for something that didn't go as expected? So again, pointing fingers, pointing blame is not purely a narcissistic trait, but like, if they do it pretty frequently, and if it's something that's like outside of this person's control, or if it's like a group effort and they can't take accountability for their part in it, then like, that's a sign. How well do they receive constructive feedback? If it's not well, bitch, then that's your sign. That's it. Close book. move on, right? Like there's nothing more to say there. If your leader, if your boss in general can't take constructive criticism at all, then like that's just not a place I think that's going to work for you, because they're not going to be able to give you actually constructive criticism either. Everyone needs it. Like no one's perfect out here in these streets, let's be honest, right? I'll list kind of the full question here, but the last one that I'll talk about is that particularly if you're backfilling a role, what was the relationship between that person that you're replacing and the manager, and how did they manage the disagreement? So this is like a very tactical, talk to me about why this person isn't here anymore. What was the issues? How do they interact with each other? Because that will tell you a lot as well. To be honest, I ignored that in one of the last positions I was in. I know that my predecessor didn't leave on the best of terms, but I still thought that this would have been a good step for me considering where I was leaving. Turned out nah. Turned out that person left for a good ass reason. And well, I'll say I only know parts of the story, right? But like what I did find out over time definitely was like, yeah, the person that left identified some shit that I should have been more aware of, and therefore I want you to be more aware of, particularly if there's that resource there that you can talk to. Again, their opinion is going to be a little bit biased, but there's going to be truth in that, right? Because that is their lived experience. So don't ignore it. It's likely the way that they were treated, there will be an overlap in the way that you will be treated as well. So anyway, so these are some of the interview questions that you can ask to identify whether or not you have a narcissistic leader. And then at that point, you can make the decision. I will caution you to be like, yeah, okay, we're gonna go into it and knowing that they are that, and then we're gonna just take the job because it's a great opportunity, blah, blah, blah. I've had some of those arguments before. I personally don't think it's worth it, but I'm not here to make the decision for you. Just don't go in thinking that you're gonna be able to manage them and that you're gonna be able to navigate it without you being collateral damage. Like, there's no way that you're gonna get out of this unscathed. Like, it's just not, right? Because even if you're very practical and unemotional, they're not. They're not, and they're likely gonna run that company into the ground, and it's gonna be, you might get some really good experience out of it, meaning that like, you'll meet some great people potentially in the industry, you'll be able to do a couple of different things, but it's not gonna be true to like what it really is like at a company that is well run. You're gonna learn a lot of bad behaviors, you're gonna be stressed a lot. It's not my recommendation for you. It's not something that I would want for you, but go in open eyes. Open eyes? Was your eyes open? Go in with your eyes open if that's what you choose to do. And then if you find yourself in this situation, how do you get out of it? And to me, that's the only option, is to get out of it, because there's not going to be a situation where they're going to become better. Like, narcissists are not going to all of a sudden become self-aware enough and be like, shit, I'm the problem. I need to change. That's just literally not who they are. And it's very unlikely that they're going to like come to that rational realization while managing you. Like, again, it's like they're gonna run that shit into the ground, and then you're just gonna like be crippling away with what's left of your being. Okay, so so how do you survive? Number one, don't engage at all. Anyway, so don't engage. When they start spouting off out their mouth, out the left side of their mouth, you can't ignore them, because that's not like, it's kind of a lose-lose situation for you. So when I say don't engage, meaning that like give the most non-committal, middle of the road answer to anything. So if they're berating you and be like, you should understand this, and I can't believe you're that stupid enough to not prepare and do this, and you'd be like, understood, simple. Not yes, you're right, not no, you're wrong. Understood. I understand your expectations. That's it. If they want, again, like in the situation I was talking, they want to rope you into to bad mouthing someone else, you can be like, oh, well, you can just be like, I didn't necessarily see it that way. You can even just be even more non-committal than that. Like, I didn't witness that, right? So you're not saying yes, they're bad, or no, they're not. It's just like, I didn't happen to notice that, point blank period. Like, just be as non-committal, few words as possible. Don't try and over explain. Don't try and empathize. Don't try and do any of those things, because they will they will take that, turn it around, make them seem like themselves are the victim. You'll start, it's not a good situation. There's always a lose-lose on your part, so just don't engage. And then also I would say make everything public as possible. So I have a big perspective in general, just to make things public. Like, I don't like things being lost in DMs. Unless they are sensitive of nature. Put them all in the public Slack channels, right? The team channels, the work channels, whatever. Like, it's better for more eyes to be on it. But specifically in the case of a narcissist, like, they will tend to go after you a lot more in private. So the more you can keep things public, the more you have witnesses, and the less likely they will like go full ham on you with those witnesses. So as much as possible, even if that means like after the fact, after like a one-on-one to summarize some of like the fallout or the to-dos in a public channel that why am I having a hard time with words today? That includes the people that like are relevant to the conversation, just so I was like, so so-and-so and I talked about in our one-on-one, talked about this, so this is our plan moving forward. So they're aware, they can give insight, all of that stuff. Like, those are like, use the public for your advantage. Now, granted, they're not gonna like it, right? They're not gonna like it at all, but it's going to be your saving grace. And that's gonna lead me into the next thing, which is document everything, every fucking thing. Everything, even the one-on-one conversations, like even the conversations, all the conversations, like just go in, create a document of some kind, not on your work computer. And even if it's just a recap, you know, high level of what occurred that day, what the conversation was about, like document everything. It's gonna be time consuming and it's gonna be annoying, but particularly with these narcissists, like you need that level of documentation in case you need to take it to a legal standpoint at the end. Because what I found over time with narcissists, not just in my work life, but in my personal life, it's that like, they're not happy if you end up leaving, right? Out of your own volition. So like, they're like, you can't quit me, I have to quit you. Like that's their type of shit. Again, children at the end of the day. And so they may, I wish I could tell you this really specific example. Ooh, I want to tell you. Maybe I'll be able to like edit this back after a certain situation is over. But like they will become vindictive against you. And so the only way to protect yourself is to have all that documentation that shows this behavior of things. And so in like a bigger corporate, you can take all that documentation to HR, even though I feel like, you know, HR is legal, is like the happy face of legal. They probably won't do anything. But if you get unfairly terminated, or you know, whatever you happen to hear, like after you leave a situation, they're bad talking you or whatever, or like ruining opportunities for you, you can use all of this with like an employment lawyer and sue the shit out of them. To be honest with you. And I wish more people of color were more litigious in this way. There are lawyers out there that, you know, are, I think like the term is like on contingent. So like they'll just take a percentage of any money that you win in your claim. And you should 100%. Like these fucking assholes, not only they need to be known to the world so that they don't continue to have the power that they hold, but also they need to pay my pain and suffering. And that's not to be like, you know, like I want to lay on my ass and just get paid for doing no work. No, I've done a lot of work, and you have intentionally inflicted trauma on me, and which was unnecessary. I didn't deserve it. None of those things. And the thing that you do have, because I don't want employment from you anymore, but the thing that you do have is you do have money, and so that you're gonna pay me for it. So like that's my opinion on it anyway. But in any case, document all the things, because even if you're not actively going to go after somebody, you should have it to protect yourself in case they start lying, doing and saying things that aren't true, and you can have the proof to show that they're a fucking liar. Because one, I can tell you with 100% certainty that the narcissistic boss I'm talking about have shit talked me behind closed doors, in front of very important people, even to people that like me. and they forget that like, hey, there's a lot more people that like me than like you because you're a shithead. But I know how much you shit talked me, and I also have the proof to show that none of that's true, right? So like, if you want to go hard, then bitch, I can go harder. I can be a petty Betty when I need to, right? A lot of the time I go high, you know, I channel my Michelle, but sometimes I'm happy to go low with you because at least I'm prepared to do so, right? Anyway, and then the last thing that I'll say, because this is getting a long video, last thing I'll say is like find support within your organization. One of the last times that I've been through this situation, I found out too late that there was a lot of other people dealing with similar situations, and not only did us sharing information provide a sense of community because we weren't going through it alone anymore, but also it provides you like a better picture of like what's actually going on. And I realized, oh fuck, this company is doing a lot worse than I thought that it was doing, because I only saw like this small piece over here and he was only terrorizing me in this section over here versus all of these other sections where people were being terrorized and they were hearing things that they shouldn't have heard, because again, narcissists will also share information that they shouldn't share because of this ego. In any case, find support within your organization. In the very rare cases, you can take all of this document, all of this evidence to the board, but in a lot of cases you can't. But at the very least, like, they'll still be aware of the person that they're backing, and they likely will not back them in the future. They'll just kind of ride along. They'll take it as a loss and then move on. And not that again, that's a vindictive thing, but it's mostly helping the industry in and of itself, because after you leave, that person will convince somebody else, right? They will slap on the charm. They will, sell the mission, sell the passion of the thing, and get someone else to come on. And that's what we don't want for each other. We don't want to knowingly let kind of an abuser, for lack of a better phrase, continue to abuse other people in our community. It's not okay. And we need to be there for each other in that respect. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking now. I can talk about this for a long time because again, I have a lot of examples, but let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if there's specific things you want me to talk about, and I can do like a part 2 to this, and hopefully I'll be able to share you with you like some more specific. All right, bye.